Alrighty then, so good morning, good evening, good afternoon, folks. Name's Jake Keltel. Welcome back to the program, and hey, guess what? I'm reviewing this, 1986's When the Wind Blows, an animated feature directed by Jimmy T. Murakami, who many cult film aficionados will probably know as the director on Roger Corman's Battle Beyond the Stars, and many 80s kids will actually have not realized that this man, partnered with Frank Wolf, would create a studio that would bring you all the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Yeah, and here he is directing a film that follows an old married English couple, James and Hilda Bloggs, played by Sir John Mills and Dame Peggy Ashcroft, respectively, who have to survive a nuclear strike. So, with that in mind, let's just kind of get on with it. So, if I wanted to say one thing about this film as kind of a starter, is that it's not as depressing as everyone may say. Now, in prep for this, I not only rewatched this film yesterday, I also watched the late, great Emer Prevost, God rest his soul, and God help me if I mispronounce his names, reaction and review of the film, which you could probably look up. It's probably one of the biggest videos that actually did a thing on When the Wind Blows. So with that said, and I'll be honest, one of the things, though, is that this film is most certainly a black comedy. And in prep from this, I noticed that one of the things that many people probably never quite caught on to, I mean, a lot of reviews will always say, it's a very charming film, it's got very likable characters, and then everything goes south after, the bomb drops and everything. But the key is, there is so much humor to this. It's not necessarily heart in my mind so much as humor that really does make this film both ingenious and tragic. Because the Bloggses believe that this strike, this bombing, is just going to be another blitzkrieg. It's just going to be World War II all over again. And so basically they trust the government and they rely on the pamphlets, including the infamous Protect and Survive series of pamphlets and, short films. And of course, when one of those pamphlets tells you to make a fallout shelter out of doors and pillows and couch cushions, they're not quite the most trustworthy resources. And that's the thing. It is tragic that it is that's the wonderful thing about this black comedy. It makes you laugh at some of the ineptness of these old pamphlets, but also you feel really sorry that these two, that's all they have to go on for prepping for this stuff. They don't quite know they kind of have the reality of the situation under check, but the thing is they just really don't have a grasp on, the true weight and impact of a nuclear strike. And the thing is, John Mills and Peggy Ashcroft make this film because they're the only people who really are there for the film. The whole film in my mind is very ingenious for several things. And one of the things is, and this is something that the original graphic novel created by, of all people, children's author Raymond Briggs, best known for a lot of his lighter works like The Snowman and Father Christmas, is that it revolves around just two people, Jim and Hilda. That's it. That's all you have, sans radio announcers, and once the bomb hits, they're gone. So you really are stuck watching two people trying to survive nuclear fallout. People who only have the, quite frankly, misguided and inept government pamphlets to help them survive. It is depressing as all get out. And the thing is, the reason why I'm talking so much about story on this is that that's the thing. This script is pretty dang impressive. Many people wouldn't believe that just having essentially what you could consider a stage play. This is essentially a two-man show. that's the extent of it as like a as you know as a screenplay would go. It almost feels more like a stage play, like a minimalist stage play. Like instead of a one-man show, it's a two-man show. Whoop-de-doo. But the thing is, it works so well. The character interactions, character development, it is just absolutely brilliantly done. And that also is helped by the fact that John Mills and Peggy Ashcroft do make this film because they work off of each other. They sound like an old married couple. And you wouldn't surprise me if I was told that they actually wound up recording their lines not separately but in the same booth. That's how intimate their, character relationships do get. Visually, this film is absolutely inventive in the sense that it uses model sets and miniatures as the backgrounds to the character animation. And the character animation, if you've ever seen a production by TVC London, you'll know that the character designs are very soft, very inviting, very warm, and that's mainly due to the fact that, essentially, whether he's credited or not, chief production designer is Raymond Briggs. The look and feel of his graphic novels and his storybooks always seep into TVC London's work. And so the round characters, the very charming, very lovable, very cute, quite frankly, character designs aids in making the film all that more tragic. But visually, it's absolutely inventive for the use of model work, the very weird colors that are going for. Like, we hit Suspiria levels of color saturation. You'll have the Russian missile being shot with, like, a red-blue, kind of like weird, radiant background. It's very, very surreal. And then you'll have shots of, like, a plane flying overhead, and it's a blue, and it's, like, all colored in blue. And actually, no, I think that was the submarine. I think the plane wasn't. Put it this way, the colors will mess with your head, but the multitude of animation just in mediums going on in here is absolutely insane. You have model animation, you have stop motion because of when characters sometimes have to interact with the set. You have little bits of cutout animation, because a lot of the props are actually photos of, like, certain household items like blankets and such. And of course, that's where the visual experiment really does kind of fall apart slightly, because that looks like just kind of a fade to shot, like almost as if it was an animatic. It doesn't have the fluidity of an in-between. And if there is an in-between, it's a very, it's literally one frame between the two. It's not that much of an in-between. But beyond that, the visual look is absolutely ingenious, and it's all the more heartbreaking by the fact that TVC London is back at it again, utilizing Briggs's design work to create characters that are just too lovable that you don't want to see any harm come to them, and then the film just goes all the way down south. So there's that. The score is also very interesting and unique because it was composed by Pink Floyd bassist and grand conceptualist Roger Waters, featuring a title song by David Bowie. Let's just say David Bowie's title song is catchy, it's very enjoyable, but the funny thing is it's so jarring, and it has such a nice and kind of chipper tone that once you see James, on the bus and then walking home, it feels like the opening to a kid's cartoon. That's literally it. You have a lot of nice, somewhat cheerful, slightly jaunty, almost janky, if you would, instrumentals that soon fade in as James is walking into his house. You just have the jarring tone of that, on top of the fact that the background, the sky, in most of the shots of Jim walking towards the house, is actually just a shot of a fog machine going off. Like, you'll have clouds made by a fog machine, and basically that's the background. You'll have, the hills and everything, but then there's that sky. intercut with like stock footage of like cloudy skies and whatnot. It's just visually, combine that with the nature of the Bowie song, makes for a very impressively jarring intro. And Waters' score is pure Roger Waters. There's a psychedelic touch with a lot of his guitar work. There is a very kind of, he knows his way around the keyboard, so a lot of his synth work, a lot of those sounds do work very well. He does incorporate a few live instruments, if I'm correct, unless that's one very well synthesized tuba. And also there's the absolutely haunting end title theme, Folded Flags, which he performs with a group called the Bleeding Hearts Band, which I'm not surprised if that comes from a lot of the lyrical content of, say, The Wall from 1979. But his score suits the film well, and it aids in a lot of the very surreal dream sequences and, like, dazing sequences, essentially, because a lot of the times the characters will, like, drift into their thoughts, and then all these very fun, weird daydreams happen. Like, Hilda at one point dreams she's a butterfly, and it just morphs into this very well-handled sequence of interesting use of colored pencil artwork. James will have a fantasy about a Russian, like, just bearing down the door with, essentially a Russian in the sense of, like, the Cossack Russian. With, big, burly, with the gun, with the friggin', bayonet. God, I can't believe I forgot what those are. And it's all aided very well by Waters' score, although there's not much of it. Occasionally it's stingers and whatnot. Excuse me. But on the whole, it doesn't have a lot of thematic Actually, the thing is, it has a lot of thematic continuity, it just doesn't have a lot of thematic development. That's the thing. There's not really a lot of thematic development unless you count it all culminating into the Folded Flags song. Beyond that, not really much. I guess, if anything, the last thing really to talk about is, I guess the impact. 'Cause this came as far as, the previously mentioned radiation wave in the last episode, this came kind of late in the game. This came in, 86. And I think one of the last few films from the cycle that many people, include, I think was, the Russian film Dead Man's Letters, and just a few other features here and there. And then maybe if you want to push it, you can start talking about other weird TV films like Without Warning and whatnot. But this came late in the game, but it packed a punch. And I think a lot of that is just through the almost brazenly avant-garde presentation of everything. Murakami directs the film with a very kind of... He directs the film with a very interesting sense of pacing. He lets you get inside the heads of the characters with all the very weird sequences and whatnot, but at the same time, he really does try to just kind of keep a good sense of pacing and timing. He lets you... Basically, the ebb and flow, the development over the course of the film, from when the bomb drops and when everything goes south from there, that all feels like a very natural progression. The sequences feel very natural, the presentation feels very natural, it's all really an organic presentation, and that's, I think, the strong point of this film. So, to conclude, When the Wind Blows is highly recommended by me. It is probably one of the most ingenious, inventive animated films I've seen in a while. It's able to take two people stuck in a house, essentially, trying to survive a nuclear strike, and it's just handled in such a beautiful, brilliant way. The acting is superb, the animation, while rough around the edges, is inventive, is visually exquisite. honestly, it is just a treat and a sight to behold. You just have to watch this. So with that, I leave you with my recommendation wholeheartedly. If you can find the limited edition Twilight Time Blu-ray, or if you're like me and you hunted down the Channel 4 Region 2 release, find this film. Even if you have to like watch it on YouTube or something, you will not be disappointed. Every inch of this film, in my opinion, is kind of underrated because it's not really shown off a lot. You can't get it on DVD that much, and Twilight Time's release was a limited release. So, with that said, if you liked this video, me rambling and whatnot, please like, share, comment, and subscribe and all that good stuff. You can find me all around the internet in the links in the description. And with that, I'll be dropping a poll soon, so you can all decide what I'm going to be talking about next. So, catch you later, guys.